Hello everyone, my name is iGoRawr and welcome to a bit of a different video because today I'm going to be doing the entire video sober. For those of you who don't understand why that's unusual, well, clearly you're new here. But in a double surprise twist, I have decided to make a video that is not Let's Araxium. Rather than review the Solstice, I instead want to talk about some changes that I feel could really benefit the weapon. Now keep this in mind, it's all just my opinion and it's not like any of these changes are ever going to be implemented, although, you know, Daybreak. Come on, I know you're watching. I mean, you could do worse than me. Not a lot worse, but, you know, worse. Now let me put this out there though, I don't think the Solstice is a bad weapon. To me, the Solstice is just kind of like spending 12 hours writing a resume and then doing the whole thing in Comic Sans and submitting it alongside some finger paintings you made in kindergarten. It's a really sloppy design. Even though a complex opinion can never really be expressed with the typical IGN 10 out of 10, buy it now, our exclusive rights to the review have nothing to do with our score type of bullcrap, for the sake of time, I'm going to say the Solstice is like a 6.5. So not bad, but it's not getting my panties wet like the Bandit did last week. And more importantly, it's my channel, and I can put whatever the fuck I want on here. Like, seriously, I could do a video on, I don't know, opening cans, and people would watch it. In fact, let's go do that right now. Come on, let's go open cans. Come on, go.
Alright, we're just gonna open a can, plain and simple. Watch, people will watch it. Proving my point here. Come on. There you go. Plain and simple. A bunch of people just watch me open a can. You know what? If we're gonna do it, we might as well do it right. Give me another can. I want another can. Come on, we're gonna do this right.
And so, iGoRawr continued to run the joke into the ground, continuing far beyond reason or taste until the value of the joke became infinitely closer to zero, as did its overall humor. Some say he is still opening cans to this very day.
So, before I start butchering the stats of a weapon I'm sure many people like, let's remind ourselves of the stats of the weapon as it currently stands. Starting off with a fire rate of 698 rounds per minute with a damage model of 143 damage up to 10 meters, dropping off to 112 damage at 60 meters with a time to kill of 0.25 to 0.7 seconds, we have some pretty moderate stats and about as close as you can get to the middle of the road in terms of time to kill. This is also the equivalent of a weapon that deals 167 damage that fires at 577 rounds per minute. Anyone that knows a thing or two about the VS Carbine arsenal is gonna know why this is an issue, but we'll talk more about that later. Next is a magazine size of 30 rounds with a reload speed of 1.65 seconds short and 2.28 seconds long, with a velocity of 515 meters per second. When it comes to attachments, just about everything is available to the Solstice outside of a compensator and special ammunition types. So, just how badly will Rawr butcher this weapon? Well, we'll find out in a minute, but first, a word from our sponsors. Hey there, soldier. Have the long, hard days in the battlefield got you feeling down? Do you feel like you could be something more? Well, introducing new shitter sticks! Yes, shitter sticks are the fun new way to pad your stats. Just listen to some of our satisfied customers.
Before shitter sticks, I was just another nobody on this battlefield. But look at me now, 5+ KDR, score per minute of 600. Can't argue with results like that.
No sympathy for the devil, keep that in mind. Buy the ticket, take the ride. And if it occasionally gets a little heavier than what you had in mind, well, maybe chalk it off to forced conscious expansion. Tune in, freak out, get beaten.
Increase your KDR, boost your score per hour, get loads of compliments on your amazing skills. Shitter Sticks by Nanite Systems. Nanite Systems, we're not war profiteers. Seriously. Are we kidding? Let's go swim in the money pit. So that brings us to our final question. Why is it that I think the Solstice needs a bit of a buff? And to answer that, we do need to take a look at my planet-side history. So for that, we're going to need to look up some information in the iGoRawr encyclopedia. So let's just get our encyclopedia out here and skim through the glossary. Okay. Congratulations, it's a nurse. Can you come take a look at this? That's just early childhood stuff. What else you got here? Rawr's first drink, nope. Rawr's second drink, nope. Rawr's last drink, nope. Rawr's 12th last drink, nope. That's about the 10th grade, so that's... oh, here it is, Planet Man's, page 42. Okay. Despite his disability of being a console peasant for most of his life, iGoRawr managed to ascend to the heights of the PC Master Race in late 2012. Although it wasn't his first FPS that he ever played on a PC, it was the first FPS that he wanted to take seriously. Thus began the downward spiral into the poor man's rel that he is now. Wow, that's kind of harsh. Upon launching the game, he was greeted to an opening cutscene that was about as cohesive as the opening to Ride to Hell Retribution. Rawr was immediately dropped into the middle of nowhere and taken advantage of faster than the new guy in the prison shower. But his willpower and his anus was strong, and he refused to let the butthurt get the best of him. After about 2 hours of what can only be described as faffing about, iGoRawr learned 3 things. First of all, that the Orion was amazing. Second of all, that the Jank Squad Alpha was the worst outfit on Connery, and he loved it. And third, was that he didn't like the Solstice. Stupid jokes aside, the point I'm trying to make is that I've used the Solstice from the perspective of not only a brand new player to the salty veteran that I am now, but I've also had it in my hands as an absolute nearly brand new PC shooter player, so about as bad as you can get. In fact, I could have opened with that point and skipped over the whole Rawr history lesson, but you know, I gotta pad this crap out somehow, and YouTube is hard. The issues I had back then versus the issues that I have now with the Solstice are different, but every last one of them comes from the weapon's recoil, so let's start breaking down the recoil of the Solstice and get a better idea of what past and current Rawr did not like about it. Starting off with a first shot recoil multiplier of 2.28, this weapon has the second highest recoil multiplier of any weapon in the whole game. There are only 6 weapons in the game that have a higher first shot recoil multiplier than the Solstice, and every last one of them fires at 800 rounds per minute or faster. To put it in perspective of how just disproportionate that is to other weapons, here's a list of weapons that shoot just as fast as the Solstice, but have significantly lower first shot recoil multipliers. How about some weapons that deal 167 damage but also share the same time to kill? Well, here's a few of those, and as you can still see, it's absolutely absurd when compared to those as well. And just for good measure, and because I like telling myself I'm right all the time, here are some weapons that fire much faster than the Solstice, but still have lower first shot recoil multipliers. It's very clear that the first shot recoil multiplier is extremely disproportionate to what everything else is available to you out there, but to some extent it is balanced out by having some of the lowest recoil per second of any weapon in its particular class, but not by a whole lot. So what was old Rawr's issue with this weapon? Well, the first shot recoil multiplier was such a dominant factor on the Solstice, it actually led me to believe that the weapon was either bugged or more recoil on the first shot was actually some sort of mechanic in the game. It would constantly have me missing my second, third, all the way up to my 6th shot at the time, just because of how hard aiming was for me back then. By the time I managed to get my sights back on my target, my cone of fire would be much too big to be reliable, and it was all down to RNGs at that point. Currently, I have the same issue with the weapon, although to a much lesser degree, although I still find it incredibly unappealing even when I don't even need to burst my shots. At range, when bursting is required, it becomes extremely hard to use and makes me ask myself every single time, why the hell am I just not using the Pulsar C? The Solstice is a mid to long range carbine, keep that in mind, and it has a recoil mechanic that actively discourages burst firing. So, in short, not good. Second issue I have is its recoil angles. The horizontal recoil angle can be anywhere between 14 and 17 degrees, and we have the same issue that we had before. When compared to other weapons of similar rates of fire, it's far sharper and has far more variation than anything else compared to it. And oh, wouldn't you look at it, the recoil tolerance of 0.5 is also high and extremely disproportionate to other things out there. I hope you get the point I'm trying to make by now. The extreme amount of kick generated on the first shot combined with a horizontal recoil that can vary between 14 and 17 degrees is really where my problem with this weapon lies. With a very inconsistent aspect of this weapon being amplified to very high levels with the first shot recoil multiplier, I simply can't compensate for the weapon's recoil correctly because it's too random. The best I can do is find the middle ground between the two angles and just hope I don't roll a 17 or a 14 on my first shot. Have you ever heard of the experiment where a flight of stairs were built, but one step was just a single millimeter lower than all the others and it would cause people to trip? Well, that's dealing with the Solstice's recoil in a nutshell for me. Very consistent recoil is a huge part of doing well at range. A weapon like the Pulsar C is so consistent in its recoil that it basically turns the game into a point-and-click adventure once you get good with it. How much recoil a weapon has is irrelevant so long as the recoil is exactly the same every single time. Outside of the very first shot on the Solstice, it's incredibly easy to handle, but it's that one massively inconsistent factor that makes it just impossible to nail down. Despite my negativity though, this is a critical evaluation, and yeah, I do need to blow out of proportion some of the issues that the weapon has to really get people to understand my point of view. As it stands, the Solstice still is an okay weapon, but it's not absolutely balls-tastically amazing. Perhaps my opinion stems from remembering my PlanetSide 2 experience the same way I remember sex. I remember the highs, I remember the lows, but never the awkward in-between titty fumbling and all the ouch you're on my hair. A middle-of-the-road average player would be the ideal target audience for this weapon, but even then, if you just took an hour to sit down and really apply yourself to trying to get good with the Solstice, you'll find yourself quickly mastering it, but then just desiring so much more out of a weapon that really just kind of reaches this peak that you can't go beyond even though your skills can go beyond it. In the most simple way of putting it, the Solstice is not a bad weapon. By no means is it bad, but if you have intentions of investing your time to build your skills with it and really try to get good with the weapon, it is probably one of the worst investments of your time you could possibly make. So given the opportunity, what would I change? And it is pretty simple. The idea of the Solstice is not a bad one. Low recoil at the cost of other recoil factors. The thing is though, I feel that this weapon has gone too far down this particular path to really show and shine the potential of what a weapon that does this could possibly offer. So the changes, although small, would have some pretty meaningful effects. The first shot recoil multiplier is far too high for something with this kind of fire rate. Out of all the trade-offs this weapon makes, this is undoubtedly the one that really kills the Solstice for me. So bringing down the first shot recoil multiplier to something a little bit more reasonable, but still high enough to make the weapon feel unique in its own right, would be a good thing to do. So bringing it down to about 2.2 would keep large amounts of starting kick, but bring it down just enough to where the ranges bursting would be required feels a lot more controllable. The second change I would make would be decreasing the maximum angle of recoil from 17 to 16. Yet again, this is another small change that's only going to be really felt when burst firing the weapon at long range, but that's really the point. When it comes to how much fire rate a weapon has versus how effective it is at range, the Solstice is definitely sitting on the ass end of that scale, and I would really like the weapon to be a little bit more effective at range. Lastly, I would increase the vertical recoil from 0.25 to 0.28. As it stands, 0.25 is the lowest recoil of any carbine in the game outside of the NS11C. Like I said, it feels like the Solstice is heading too far down the path of extremely low recoil and suffers too much for the trade-offs it makes. Just straight up buffing the Solstice's accuracy and controllability would probably result in a weapon that's far too strong, and this is why I recommend upping the vertical recoil just a touch. It still makes it one of the lowest recoil weapons out there in the game, which is a good thing, because if the weapon did get a buff, I wouldn't want to see the spirit, or at least the driving idea of the weapon destroyed, because it actually is a very good one. I just want to see the Solstice come a little bit out of that zone of easy to control weaponry and offer me something that's a touch more challenging to handle, but gives me a bigger reward in the end of something that is a little bit more controllable. As it stands, I think the Solstice is okay. For myself though, I've never encountered a situation where I've wanted the Solstice over the Pulsar C, but don't let the opinion of one asshole on the internet deter you. I mean, the weapon is free. If you do well with the weapon already, then all the more power to you. Being proven wrong or seeing a different perspective is something that I don't mind. In fact, I'm really curious to hear people's thoughts about this in the comment section. Anyways, that's it for this time, guys. My name's iGoRawr, and I'm gonna go start working on a very big video. I'll see you next time.
Yep. Looks like it's being attacked.
Mm-hmm. Oh! Oh! Wait! Wait! What just happened?
Put down a
Oh!
beacon. Put down a beacon. Did you like that? What did you do to him? I thought you'd like it.
How did you manage that?
I thought you'd like it.